All right, Ulm turn 79. The war rages on. So yeah, let's take a look here. This was just our Ivy King, knocking out, minimal PD as part of the raiding effort. We did not put PD in one of the provinces, probably just an oversight. I do like to at least see what they're using to raid. And then let's see, I think this is a bump. Yeah, so our Axe Warriors bumped into two elemental royalty. So that's not good for him. This guy is, just, always using his gems. Yeah, so the King of the Mountains looks like he is set up as a super combatant here. We've seen kind of all this gear before. Gonna be very killy, very difficult to kill. A lot of regeneration, 15% on 130 hit points. Like, yeah, this is gonna be tough. He's got a couple sages who look like they are retreating. Not sure what happened there. Maybe they're just trying to throw body ethereal on somebody. Maybe like site searchers or something in the wrong place, wrong time. But yeah, it won't matter because there's no way. Oh, our poor Axe Warriors. So yeah, that goes real poorly. It happens. And then we caught Vanheim cleaning out some independents. Just kind of love I think this is well, maybe it's a different guy, but yeah, very, very heavily kitted. He just uses like a really heavily kitted Van Jarl. He probably took quite a bit of misfortune. And it's a good way to, just clean out all the barbarian attacks that you're always going to see when you get misfortune. I think here awe is really effective because barbarians, their morale is really poor, and you're more likely to awe units. That's like the guys that are flashing. So yeah, pretty good kitting. I don't even think he takes a hit. So yeah, that's good stuff. And then in Macone, Macone actually sallied out to fight Hinnom in the field. So yeah, this is pretty much what we've seen. Let's see, what is he? He's bringing out a bunch of gems again, so probably more Earthquake, I'm guessing, or maybe some of those summons. And then Hinnom's army is definitely kind of clustered up, like planning for an assault, right? So these guys are going in early to try to keep the gap open, and the chariots are clustered up to probably get through the gap. So it's kind of a little unfortunate here. I think these are Hinnom's birds. Let's turn on team colored. Yeah, these are Hinnom. In fact, probably dual colored. The colors are kind of close. So yeah, Hinnom's birds go in. These birds are undisciplined, so they always just go right in. But they are going to interrupt guys. Like, they're not going to really get any kills or anything. But they have to spend their time fighting birds, and now more dangerous stuff actually gets up. So anyway, it's kind of unfortunate. This is one of the things. Like, if you set up for an assault, I don't know what that was. I don't think it was reinvigoration. I'm not sure what that spell was. But yeah, it's like one of the things, if you set up for an assault, you may have to fight a field battle, so there's really not a whole lot you can do about that. It's just possible that you're not gonna have a perfect formation. So it looks like no Earthquake. Looks like he went for a bunch of these summons. So we've talked about before, they are pretty good. The lightning being thrown in, a lot of this stuff is pretty killy. It is a shame that these sacreds are not getting blessed. I don't even remember what Hinnom's bless is. Clearly he feels it's not important enough to really worry about. Some of those Dawn Guard are pretty good. The chariots, in this case, they are size 5, so they can trample most of this stuff, especially the summons, but they're going to kind of struggle to, trample a lot of Macone's commanders here. That looked like some Phoenix Pyre, probably from Macone. He does like that. I don't know, did somebody pop up somewhere? I don't think so. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, a lot of his guys have... Oh wait, no, hold on. He could be this guy. Yeah, he's got Phoenix Pyre. So yeah, there you go. Let's see, what is his reinvigorate? And he's under 100 again. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't been sold on this, but it worked there. So, and then yeah, this is one of Hinnom's heroes, I think. Yeah, so he's got a Demon Whip. I don't know if we've seen one of those. It's a cross, fire, blood. It doesn't do a lot of damage, right? So, this is one of those things where it kind of hurts that it's being wielded by a giant. I should double check how whips work, but I believe, you can't it's max 1 point damage, right? So you can't, it doesn't, your strength doesn't help you at all, which is unfortunate, right? Because he has a lot of strength. Now it does do this small area of fire, right? 1 square of quite a bit of fire damage. So I mean, it's not a bad weapon, but yeah, I don't know about having it, you know, on a really strong giant. Like certainly he's gonna struggle against, you know, kind of thuggy, more super combatant units. Is better for clearing chaff, I believe. Otherwise, like solid kit, I would say. But yeah, it's going to struggle a little bit, you know, for some of these pole marks, I think. And, you know, it might help clear out some of this chaff. Yeah, these guys don't have a ton of hit points. Like, this guy's taking some damage, but they probably have less than 10 to start with. That's an Earth Elemental from Hinnom. Another Phoenix Pyre. Let's see, where are our Phoenix Pyre friends? Okay, so yeah, so this looks like he's gotten 2 Phoenix Pyres off of this guy. He is over 100 fatigue right now, but his reinvigoration is pretty good, so it's going to start to tick down quickly. He might get another use out of that. I don't know, I've heard mixed things about, you know, Phoenix Pyre thugs. Some people, like, not convinced. I have seen him be pretty annoying. I know that I believe it's a personal spell, so you can get it onto like communion slaves and do some pretty ridiculous things with that, where you just, you know, have a bunch of mages, like squishy mages, just blowing up all over the battlefield. And if, you know, they have high enough reinvigoration, it can be pretty nasty. But yeah, you know, and obviously there are attacks that deal fatigue, like, you know, the sprites, which we've talked about recently, like come to mind. You know, they're a great way to knock out like a Phoenix Pyre thug. But I mean, as long as you kill them fast enough, which can be hard because, you know, they're popping around, so if your troops are really slow, then yeah, you might struggle. But it looks like most of the summons are gone for Macone. He has some routers. Yeah, this is another Phoenix Pyre guy, but, you know, 170 fatigue, so he probably died and came back. And so it looks like pretty much everybody is Phoenix Pyred. Let's see, no, this guy doesn't have the paths, but yeah, this guy's Phoenix Pyred. So, and reinvigoration 10, you know, he's got like reinvigoration items on him, so it looks like the plan is to just send them out and, like, yeah, they're gonna die, but have them keep coming back. But like, yeah, you can see it is really tough. You know, when you die. Like, let's take a look at this guy, because I think he's gonna go under before he dies. And let's try to see like where his fatigue ends up at. Kind of keep an eye on everybody. It does. We have some routers on Hinnom's side, so this might work. Like, this is pretty close. And he has quite a bit of fire resistance. Yeah, wow, this guy's a ton of fire resistance. I'm not even sure. Oh, he gets some because he's a fire mage, and then of course, you know, the elemental armor and his helmet. But like, still, yeah, 42. He probably got some from like a cast or something. He's asleep though, so that's kind of a good thing, because that means he can't fatigue himself out. So this is a case where sleep cloud probably isn't helpful. But, you know, I mean, we're well past anything that's been scripted now, so you're just at the mercy of the spellcasting AI. There's another Phoenix Pyre that went off. Yeah, it's probably this guy here, maybe, who's already under 100 fatigue, so that's pretty impressive. He must have been relatively low. Another Phoenix Pyre. I don't actually know how much damage that does offhand. Yeah, wow, a ton of routers. Of course, the one guy that I picked, like this guy, oh, he's been routed. I wonder. Yeah, the armies of Macone are routed, so they might be able to make it off the field. So, like, yeah, this guy's fatigue might be under 100, but, like, he's trying to get out of here. So, you know, I mean, your units don't love dying. Oh, somebody incinerated him. Where did he pop back up? Okay, so he was, like, probably roughly, you know, 90 fatigue-ish, maybe 80 fatigue. Yeah, so I think dying gives you roughly 40 fatigue. I'll look it up. But yeah, so you can, I mean, you know, if you don't die that often, it's definitely something you can get around. And certainly, like, these guys have gotten, like, multiple uses, at least a couple commanders. Okay, let's see. Oh, no, this guy's trampling through to retreat. That's interesting, I think, is what's happening, because, yeah, his morale's broken. That's cool. I didn't actually realize. Yeah, actually, you know, elephants definitely work that way, because they'll trample your own guys to retreat. I'm kind of notorious for that. Of course, he cannot trample this size 6 hero. So he's stuck now in combat. Let's see. And okay, this guy went. And he popped back up, so he made it, 143, so he was probably right at the edge there. And, we can actually answer. I reduce my research load here for that demon whip. 1 point of damage. Yeah, capped, right? So that really kind of hurts. I would say that, like, a whip is probably not the right weapon, for somebody like this. Unless, like, you're going for, like, just trying to clear chaff. Which, I mean, maybe. Certainly McCone had, dumped out a bunch of those, like, they're not the magic being summons. So, I mean, maybe he was more worried about that. And, I mean, McCone did dump out a bunch of them. So that's a fair worry. Anyway, we'll go ahead and speed this up a little bit. It's going to take a hot second. So now it's really just a question of, like, I'm not sure. This guy, he's asleep, so he's not going to be able to route off. And I mean, like, the bird is not fantastic, but yeah, you can see he was able to get him. So yeah, this guy died and came back. I don't think our other guy came back, although it's possible that he just came back at the end of the field and was able to route off. Yeah, see, like, here he popped up over here, and now he's just trying to get out of here. So I'd say berserking probably would be a nice thing on a Phoenix Pyre Thug, right? Because I think that play would have worked for McCone had the morale failure not gotten him. That's a lot of ways to berserk. I think it's like nature and blood, and McCone doesn't really have those paths, so he probably just didn't have, obviously, like, he's down to it. So yeah, that was, like, pretty successful. I mean, he loses almost everything. His Elder Cyclops escapes, and E4 escapes, but I mean, he does a ton of damage again. It's just been a rough war for him. So, Hinnom gets the win, but yeah, that's pretty painful, and definitely an example of, like, Phoenix Pyre Thugs and what that can accomplish. Another thing, if you're up against Phoenix Pyre Thugs, obviously, fire resistance is going to help a lot. And he had some fire resistance stuff, but they get significantly less good if your enemy everything is, like, high fire resistance, because even if it takes a long time, like, unless you're specifically looking to turn timer it, where the battle just goes on forever, you're not really going to kill much if all you're doing is dying in a fiery explosion, but everybody's, like, immune to fire. So anyway, definitely an interesting battle. And then, speaking of interesting battles, so yeah, this this is us sallying out and trying to evacuate, right? So pretty much everything retreats. I think we do, like, a little bit of spell casting, and then we're going to retreat. Yeah, I'm not actually sure why these sprites, you can see they die once, our mages go off the field. Yeah, and then this is HP route, I think, now. So enough stuff is routed off. So even though we still have a mage on the field here, these guys just start to disappear because we don't actually have... I didn't actually realize you have to have a mage that is unrouted. So yeah, that's kind of brutal. I think a lot of these guys were on bodyguard. Probably a few of them were intended to be sacrificed. It's extra rough because he chose not to stay on the fort. And in addition, we go nowhere because that trick only works if the fort is taken from you the same turn. So everybody just retreated back into the fort. So this was just me learning that lesson in a very expensive way. Just threw away 43 summons, to nothing. These are probably some of our Wyverns ones, maybe. No, actually, he's been using Wyverns as well. But anyway, so this is rough. This has accomplished nothing other than killing our own stuff. But it was a learning experience. So now I know, the fort has to be taken the turn that, you try to use the sally and retreat trick. So we just ended up back in the fort with fewer soldiers than before, and then we have a couple raids and etc. So this is just a lich raiding our PD. Let's just double check. I'm probably just summoning a bunch of skeletons. This is like the standard way. Like no gear, and just pumps out a bunch of skeletons, and like this is really effective. And of course, if he dies, he's immortal, so he doesn't care. That was a good raid. Pretty standard. We'll definitely see more of that in the future. And then let's see, this was their army moving out. So this is why there was, this was the army that took our research province. So they moved out into the cave nearby, knocked out the PD, no surprise there. This is us moving our army in, taking back just a lightly defended province from him. And then let's see, this is another Lich raid, right? And then we caught some battles between other people. So this was the assault that Hinnom was planning on Makone. He's able to take it. Like there's nothing in here. Not actually sure. I guess maybe that. They must have retreated. They didn't retreat into the fort, I guess. Yeah. So there's probably still an Elder Cyclops out there running around, or he might have died in the retreat. But anyway, it's just the fort defenders, and Hinnom is finally able to take Makone, although this is what's left. He may have had some stuff retreat to nearby provinces, but yeah, still, ouch. And then this is Hinnom making an assault on a Pangean fort. I think this is, the Lizard Shaman one. And of course, he hasn't really been able to do any recruitment because the fort has still been under siege the whole time. So, he still has his Lizard Shaman communion, but he has less chaff to block the gate with. And I think this is actually a howl coming from Hinnom. Yeah, so this is Hinnom's howl. So this is obviously really useful again because wolves are gonna appear inside the fort. And then of course he has a few hell herdings, and these long dead horsemen are much better. So they're gonna be able to knock out these guys no problem. And there's just less chaff here in general to block the gate. And it looks like for whatever reason, maybe he's just out of astral pearls. There was no battle fortune or will of the fates to give everything luck. And so, and now wolves are messing with the communion. And these lizard shaman, they're not awful as far as casters go in melee. They got a bite and a mace. So compared to a lot of dudes in robes, and I think, are they in robes? I think they're just, they got a crown. So they actually do have a little bit of protection. But anyway, this is, Lizard Shaman communion, definitely useful, but, it's not going to stop an entire army. So that doesn't work out for Pangea. And, Helheim marches on, no losses there. And then let's see, there's battle in Snowford. So yeah, this is Yomi continuing to clean up what he can from Marverni. And, he's brought a ton of Oni. Not as familiar with some of these. These are just some standard Oni. Aka Oni, I think, they get to throw the flames and really damaging attack with a high attack value too, which is nice. And then a lot of their stuff is two-handed weapons doing a ton of damage. Definitely pretty cool troops. Definitely have their downside. Just one Dione here. It is kitted out for thugging. And Marverni has some stuff here, so this is definitely, these guys aren't great, but they're not terrible either. Decent protection, decent skills. They're just humans, so we'll see. A few sacreds, some of his stargazers, just like the Astral 1 mages, and some of these illusionists, Air 2. Doesn't really look like there's much in the way of gems, so yeah, I think he is screwed here. It would be a tall order. If you're outnumbered by these demons, and here's all the throw flames and the spit. So some Legions of Steel, which is not bad, but for the turn that we're on, this just isn't close to enough. Some Phantasmal Warrior spam, and they just go down under. They're retreating. They're no thanks. That's enough of that. Just a ton of these throw flames. How many of them do they get? I wonder. Okay, only ammunition 3, but still, he's got so many Oni that there's no way. Okay, so it looks like a communion went down. There's a druid that I missed, although I think it's probably just an HP route now, or no, just one druid failed his check. So yeah, there's a communion, that's cool. And when you have Earth Astral with enough evocation research, you can do that Gifts of Heaven, which is the meteors coming down, which is super high damaging. It pretty much kills whatever it hits. The good news for Yomi is that all their stuff has this second spirit form, so even though they get hit by a meteor, they die, but then they get their ghost form. So unless you kill the ghost form, you actually get some back at the end of the battle. So yeah, actually Gifts of Heaven not as effective against the Oni, because you're gonna get that kill, but then then the ghost form keeps on trucking. Like, it'll come, and some of these guys are they're just pissed off spirits that had a meteor dropped on them, and now they're gonna chop up these guys in robes. So not the worst thing. You definitely see like a lot of gifts of heaven from like Marverni, or really anybody that has like Astral and Earth. Has very like low precision. It's a great way to do friendly fire. But yeah, that doesn't really work out for them. They do actually, kill a few things. They get a few Oni, so that's nice. But they lose everything. And so I'd say Marverni is probably pretty close to done here. And then, speaking of close to done, here's another Pangean fort, and just filled with Meneids, who are probably pretty good. Well, they're not great siege defense, but there's some. They're not mindless, but they're undisciplined. So I think receive a penalty to siege defense and patrol, and then also just specifically the Meneids aren't. They're not great at patrolling. So I think because they're free spawn, right? So Pangea just sort of packs their forts with them, and okay, they're not like efficient siege chaff and siege defense specifically. I think their siege strength is pretty standard. So they're pretty good for breaking down fort walls. But for holding up fort walls, they're okay. We just have one unkitted Van Jarl who has a chest wound. Ouch. And I don't even know what he's been doing. What has he been doing? He blessed himself. These Meneids are decently fast. Not super fast, but what is he? Oh, he's running. Did he get? I wonder if he got like paralyzed or something, because you'd think he would get a couple more spells off. Maybe it got interrupted. He did get hit with a bow, although it didn't do any damage. Anyway, he found that to be too freaky. So a typical like low commitment poke from Helheim, just seeing like, hey, maybe one unkitted Van Jarl can take it if it's empty. But it wasn't empty, it was full of angry ladies. And so but he doesn't even lose the Van Jarl because they're super fast. And he's got swiftness on his bless. So and I think that more or less covers battles. This was like mildly interesting. We saw Vanheim must have taken quite a bit of misfortune because he gets attacked again. And you don't see these too much, these woodland spirits. They have this like homesickness, so they take damage if like they leave you, because you can summon them as a player, but obviously for the independents they don't care. Like, they're happy to just take a province, and they're kind of interesting. They're just they have no armor, no protection, but ethereal, like awe, really high awe, regeneration, really high regeneration, low hit points, but still. And then, kind of an interesting, it's a magic attack and it causes weakness. So anyway, interesting units that you don't really see too much, with a lot of interesting tags. And as you can see, like, just your regular Joe Schmo, like heavy infantry, are struggling a bit because they're just not attacking very much. So kind of different. You don't see that every day. And he does actually lose the province to this, but I'm sure he's got his Van Jarl just cruising around dealing with all this. So I'm sure we'll see him again later. And then we lose a scout, and we're getting sieged, but we are repairing the walls faster than they can break them down, and that's here. So we are trying to break siege again in terms. So what are we doing? Now we're actually trying to break siege, especially because it looks like it's just a single scout. Now, this is where our Axe Warriors got eliminated, so it's possible, right, that he's going to jump some elemental royalty on top of it. And then, of course, he's got some stuff in what used to be our fort. So it's mostly just like Vine Ogres and, some of his regular soldiers, although I don't think they can actually reinforce. So realistically, we're probably looking at relatively like minimal commitment. There's a good chance that he just doesn't even try to contest this. Certainly he didn't try to contest it this turn, just leaving the one scout on top. But we're sending a bunch of stuff in. Some of this is like in the fort, right? Anybody that's breaking siege, but we're also bringing in like a few So let's see, where is he? It's probably dug in somewhere, to try to get his buffs. So we've got, a couple Wraith Lords who will hopefully, kill any elemental royalty that we run into. One of them's got a great sword of sharpness, but the other one does have a moonblade, which we've talked about. So yeah, I think this will go better. We're making some bugs up front for a little bit of cover. We got some disintegrate casting, like one attack to move him forward a little bit to help with the range, and he's out in front. So yeah, I think we should be able to unlock this fort next turn. And then yeah, we're massing up in our capital, which I think, and this is kind of the same army that's been cruising around, although like reinforced with a lot of stuff that we're bringing forward. I think we did end up bringing out most of the stuff. Yeah, and Old Man Mountains. Yeah, and it's pretty much empty. So yeah, I was talking about like not leaving the flank undefended, but I mean, obviously like we're losing ground here. So it's like leaving stuff back for like maybe Helheim attacking. And again, like Helheim seems very busy. They have a lot of armies that are like, a lot of these battles that we're seeing, like we saw a battle here, and like, yeah, probably a battle up here maybe. Yeah, I forget exactly where, but a lot of these fights that we're seeing with Helheim's armies are like actually pretty far away from us. I mean, granted, like the elves are pretty fast, but yeah, I'm just kind of thinking that like he's probably pretty busy. Like here's, Marverni's capital is being sieged by Helheim right now. So I'd say Marverni is done. In fact, yeah, it doesn't even look like they have any provinces left. But anyway, and like, yeah, Pangea is pretty close to done too. So yeah, maybe I should have left that stuff back. Because it's kind of looking like Helheim's business is somewhat winding down. And I mean, obviously he's fighting Yomi before, but again, haven't really caught any battles between them. Haven't really seen the borders change. So, he's probably going to be a free agent here, and he might decide that, like, yeah, maybe he would like Niflheim. So anyway, it's all the more reason that, maybe it's like, well, if we mass up our stuff and beat this army, then we'll get a breather while, brings more stuff forward. But this is a situation, I think both of us, both the player and myself, kind of just messed up here. And I really don't have much of an excuse, because he can't actually reach my capital, I don't think, right? Because this is a mountain pass, and we've talked about it a little bit before. And, it has to be Heat 1 in order for this to be passable for units without mountain survival. And if we just take a quick look, right, no mountain survival, like... these guys actually do have mountain survival. So you can get his warriors through, but like, none of his mages, right, are gonna have mountain survival. Like none of his summons, these guys don't have mountain survival. The cubes don't have mountain survival. So I mean, he could send like a tiny portion of his army through as like kind of a raid, which would really be kind of a good thing. And he mostly just like can't move through this province. And like, speaking of, this cave system's kind of interesting. So it's like, okay, you can enter over here, you can enter over here, and then you can move through the cave system, and then you can exit down into Vanheim's territory. But there's actually no way, like, so yeah, continuing our Mines of Moria experience here with our research park, they are trapped. Like, they can't actually, they'd have to either attack like Vanheim, which probably wouldn't go well and is not worth it. And yeah, that's it. The only other place they could go is right back in here. So he might just be like trying to chase down my research park, but this seems like way over commitment for like, killing, 8 mages, right? Like 8 lame mages. So I think he also thought that like he could move through this connection. Because I think, he did move through this connection, which is probably closed now, right? Because it's, getting to be winter. So yeah, and then of course, like, you're right, I'm massing in response because and I don't know. I did not think it through. So anyway, we're massing here. Probably should have just massed here, or maybe even tried to, jump back on top of this fort and then like force a battle with this army. Because I mean, he has to like, move out like through the way that he came in. I mean, unless he's planning on going and attacking Vanheim, which probably not. So yeah, this is like not the highest skill level game here. People are gonna make mistakes. It happens, in any game. But I think this is a case where both of us have made a mistake in terms of thinking that these were connected. They sure look like they're close to each other, but they decidedly are not when it's cold. And the good news is like this is pretty heavily, well, okay, maybe not heavily, but enough in our Dominion strength that like even during summer, because we have cold 3, I think. I don't even remember our scales. Maybe we only have cold 2. I think we have cold 3. Anyway, it's very unlikely that this mountain pass is like ever going to open, and since he'd have to like just sit here for like, 4, 5, 6 turns, right, for it to turn around to summer again. Very unlikely that he's going to want to just leave this army sitting here, for 6 turns. And honestly, if he leaves it sitting there for that long, it is in a cave, Earthquake Trap Part 2. So I think, we'll see what comes of this, but I think we're just going to kind of stare at each other angrily through the mountain pass. Otherwise, a little bit of counter raiding, using our Spectre to take this back. So we might bump into a Lich, which might not go well, but, so far he's been kind of choosing to move and raid somewhere else. Probably not doing enough stuff where I'm just like leaving stuff hanging out like in my own provinces to catch raiders, right? Like I really should probably be, I definitely have patrollers on my forts now, right, which is good. And of course he hasn't run into any of those traps naturally, but I probably could split out. I don't have a ton of death mages, who are probably the best thing that I have to beat like Lich raiders. But I mean, I have, probably somewhere there's some, we're using a Wraith Lord because we're worried about these. Anyway, once I get more Wraith Lords, probably just leaving Wraith Lords scattered around can probably beat Liches. They certainly have a chance. I'm not actually sure who would come out on top. I'm sure, like all things in Dominions, it depends. But anyway, it's something I should be doing and not really doing enough of. Otherwise, a bit of a shorter turn. I think research is the same. One thing that I'm trying to get better about, you can use some of the F buttons on your keyboard. So F5 is the shortcut for research. Like you probably should get in the habit, and this is really for myself, but maybe useful to you as well. It's like F5 brings up research. Interesting. You can't actually bring up another screen. You have to exit out. Anyway, F6 brings up global enchantments. This is definitely a screen that I do not look at enough. So, I mean, we've seen most of these go up, but like getting to look at them kind of all, like who's got what, right? So we haven't really looked at this too much. So Yomi has quite a bit. He's got Gift of Health, which is a big one. It just increases his inside of his dominion. His units get more hit points, and he gets a huge boost to his income. Like it's probably the biggest in the game. As always, you have to be careful, but it's huge. It's a massive income boost. So like this is a big deal. Well of Misery is really nice because it gets him a ton of death gems, and I think he's had this for a long time. So he's got plenty of death gems stacked up in all likelihood. And then Eternal Pyre is the fire gem generator. So like he's got some solid globals. Has like some of the lesser globals, right? Stellar Focus is I think 5 Astral Pearls a turn, which is kind of it's nice, but not the end of the world. And Mother Oak, similarly, like 10 nature gems is nice, but also not that big a deal. And of course, I feel like this is the standard relay play where they just switch into observer mode and kind of watch the game from underwater. This seems to happen a lot with relay players and underwater players in general. So, he can see everything that's going on, which is definitely very useful. But also not necessarily like the most threatening, global. Maybe if you're the one directly fighting him, that's something, to consider. And then, of course, Helheim has Forge of the Ancients and Riches from Beneath, also like considered probably like less threatening globals. But I don't know how much he really needs resources. This gives bonus resources and some bonus to income, although not a ton unless you have a bunch of mines, which maybe. So, I mean, he's definitely getting some money off this, but not the end of the world. And then, of course, he can forge gear, I think, for cheaper. I should double check. And it also allows him to forge more gear than he otherwise would be able to. So anyway, I'm going to bring this up a little more often. So Yomi, I would actually say, is looking kind of scary, at least in the global enchantments department, although I think they are significantly smaller. I think they're like roughly, this size kind of thing, which is not small, but, compared to Helheim, like, no comparison. So So Yomi's in a better position, like from a global standpoint, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna change the balance overall. Although Gift of Health is really powerful. And then yeah, F7 brings up like your gem income, which is, you know, kind of nice to check periodically. So, you know, we're getting quite a few death gems. We've done a lot of searching. Obviously, also we have the Throne of Death claimed, so that's helping a bunch. A lot of Earth gems, not surprising for early age Ulm, and then, you know, more astral pearls than I might expect. We definitely have been, you know, doing quite a bit of remote site searching at max level. And then, you know, not great for like fire and air, and like okay for water, and okay for nature. Nature is a bit sad because we do have a lot of like nature paths, and we have been doing a lot of nature site searching, but yeah, we just really haven't found any. Not any. We haven't found a lot because, you know, of course, some of this is coming from our capital. So yeah, and then what is this? 8 is you know, your magic items. So we can see, yeah, we had to pull some research boosters off, right? Because our guys are, you know, running through the mines. So yeah, I guess I haven't found. You know, I don't want to slap them on, you know, I mean, they're on a lot of mages, but for instance, well, I mean, this guy's not even researching anyway, but I would not want to risk putting a lantern on him, you know, because this is a rare cross path for us to get. So anyway, but it is always sad to see research boosters, you know, just sitting in the lab, and, you know, just a grab bag of other gear. So anyway, I'm going to try to get in the habit of kind of cycling through those real quickly, maybe at the end of each turn, really more for myself. But I think, you know, it does kind of help, you know, keep an eye on the game state in general, and a useful thing to be doing. So yeah, I think that covers turn 79. All right, Ulm, turn 80. We finished research for enchantment 8, which is pretty good. Mostly looking at mass regeneration there, but also a bunch of the fens for elemental resistances. Going to evocation 7 next, which we've talked about. We had a throne claim. I'm not sure actually who this is. We'll look that up. And then a dire portent. So Baratos cast something. Not really clear to me. Sometimes you get the description for the spell for the global, and then other times you don't. And yeah, you know, it's dominions. No idea what's going on there. We brought another Wraith Lord in, Marverni declaring a prophet. Marverni just pinging out on his capital, and like looks like he actually pushed off this single Vanhurst that was just holding it down temporarily. And then Macone just throwing a scout at Hinnom, you know, because why not? And then we're getting raided by a Lich, you know, beats our minimal PD. And then, yeah, this is a fairly substantial battle with Marverni riding out on Tianqi against Helheim. And, well, you know, we've seen this before. So I think, let's see. These are all like the great boars that are just free spawning in, you know, so we've found the source of the boars, if you will, or more that Helheim has found the source. So yeah, you got mass protection on him. Didn't get divine blessing, which is sad. I mean, I guess he just declared his prophet this turn, you know, all the typical like wailing winds, darkness, you know. I don't think there's any confusion about what's going to happen here, but, you know, I just feel like this is this is new. So we do have team colored squares on. Yeah, and you can see like this is Marverni's boar, but most of the boars are now Helheim's boars, right? So this is something that, you know, in the late game people talk about, like animals, like this low magic resistance. And you know what was cast is, I think we missed it, but somebody must have cast Master and Slave, or I think there's an animal specific one, so it's possible that he used that. But considering there's some Enslaved Mind going down, there's a good chance it's the Astral one. So anyway, this is the problem with using like low magic. One of the problems with using, you know, low magic resistant troops. You know, a few of the boars survived. You can see like significantly fewer of the great boars who probably have decent magic resistance. It is actually tough. Like this is kind of the best case scenario like for Master and Slave, other than the fact that like congratulations, all you got was a bunch of boars. So, you know, a lot of like patrol chaff forever now for Helheim, and like siege strength, and anyway, but yeah, you know, usually you won't see a Master and Slave be like nearly this successful, because you can see the stuff with 14. Of course, like now they're just routing because Wailing Winds and everybody got enslaved, and like the mage didn't get enslaved. Of course, now he gets trampled by his own boars. The irony of it all. So yeah, kind of sad. The final charge of the boars. Maybe they were just sick of like, you know what? Maybe we're gonna get treated better, right? If we join up with Helheim instead of just repeatedly thrown away. So yeah, wait, that was Tianchi. So yeah, you can see, I mean, he lost all of his boars, or did he? I mean, he has the negative 620 casualties. So, and then now, of course, like, yeah, he had a bunch of the, quite a few of the summoners. Like, let's see. Yeah, so he got like half, right? So magic resistance 14. And I don't know if there's any penetration gear there, because that will help significantly. But he got the majority of like the regular boars with which a much lower magic resistance. So anyway, the last ride of the boars, and then similarly, that stack of Maenads that we saw, they cannot handle hell herdings. Like that's no trouble there. So, and then this is like the final assault, and so I think if this is the same province, so now Helheim is attacking, and it does look like Marverni was just maybe trying to gem bait, right? So he sallied out with some stuff, and he still has a defense force here, right? So like not the craziest plan, right? Like I mean, yeah, he just threw a bunch of boars at him, but it's kind of like, well, he's got them, so not the worst use of them. It is sad that they all got enslaved, and then let's see, yeah, Wailing Winds, so. If it did bait out gems, because the army, Wailing Winds is a gem spell, and we saw that go up, but, this is a situation where, like, Helheim stacked up enough gems. That is the danger of if you just have just enough gems to get through your script, which is definitely something I'm guilty of sometimes. Then, had this assault happen in that case, then, all these big old spells, wouldn't go off, because you don't have the gems for them. So some Shadow Blast coming out. I think, what is this? Yeah, Fog Warriors. Do we have a protection buff? Probably. Yeah, this looks like probably Marble Warriors, which is like the Earth protection buff. There's no battlefield-wide version of it, so you do have to kind of, some Weapons of Sharpness coming down. I think I hear some, yeah, Gifts from Heaven. Always a classic from Marverni, and especially in the dark, it's going to have such low precision, but, he's just got a bunch of skeleton garbage up here, so who cares? So, hopefully he can... This is one place where Fog Warriors, like, really, really helps, because I believe, well, a lot of their mist form has been popped. But, like, yeah, it doesn't matter, right? It's like all attacks only do 1 point of damage. Now, the enchantment is definitely going to end when you get hit by that meteor, but, there's not a lot of things out there that are going to save you from getting hit by a meteor. Mist form is one of them. Now, it's only going to save you from the one meteor, but, with the really low precision, right, there's a good odds you're only going to get hit by one meteor during the battle unless there's a lot of them coming down. But yeah, I just don't think, especially with Wailing Winds, like probably some of these casters have retreated. Like, yeah, they don't have very good morale. Now, I mean, the Communion Slaves can't retreat. But like, yeah, the Masters, like definitely, well, this guy wasn't part of a Communion. So I think it's probably Wailing Winds that's going to do the trick. Although also like, I mean, he's got some Gifts from Heaven spam, but he would need a lot more to take all this down. I mean, this is a really, like, scary army from Helheim. So, like, yeah, definitely a good effort, I would say. He's got, the worthless skeleton shaft to, like, plug the gap, and then his mages are just going to, drop a bunch of meteors. Not a crazy plan, but, yeah, Fog Warriors, definitely an excellent counter to that. These guys were probably just set to make skeletons. That's probably where, I think he'd already summoned some skeletons, but... Probably these guys brought some more in, but yeah, anyway, it's all over. That was a tall order. Not a bad plan, not a bad effort, but yeah, in the end, it doesn't really work out. He gets a few things, 4 Sacreds, that's nice. 5 Troll Guard, like, that's nice. but yeah, like Helheim. But I mean, he brought like 140 units for Helheim is a ton. You know what I mean? He's got 2 of the queens of like elemental air, and yeah, I mean, Helheim brought a lot to bear. So this is a tough fight for Maverni, and they lose everything here. So yeah, rough sequence of battles for them, and I think they're down to like just their capital. So it was a good effort against Helheim, but they just weren't able to stop them. And of course, there's a barbarian attack in Macon for Anam. So yeah, now it's being besieged by barbarians. You just can't catch a break there. And then yeah, we lose a scout, and there's some patrolling, and yeah, that was Pangea's last province, so they have been eliminated. So let's take a quick look at globals, which I'm trying to use those F keys. Arcane Nexus, that's another big one. So Baratos only has 1, but it's a really important one. So that one, I got some more research to do. You get a certain percentage of all gems that are used in a turn, return to you, if you will, in the form of astral pearls. I think it's like 50%, but I'll double check. So anyway, assuming that it's like 50%, it's like if any forging, anything that takes gems, right? So if you cast a 10 gem spell, then not Hinnom, Baratos is going to get 5 astral pearls from that, right? If you forge a 10 gem item, like Baratos is going to get 5 astral pearls from that. And that applies to like everybody on the whole map, right? So it results in a ton of astral pearls, and what you can do with a kind of not infinite, but a ton of astral pearls. This is kind of its own whole little rabbit hole. Wishing is like probably the easiest. There's a spell wish, and you can wish for all kinds of things, and so you just turn all those astral pearls into a bunch of wishes, and then of course, well, what do you wish for? That's its own rabbit hole. But regardless, this is extremely dangerous, and definitely increases Baratos's power. That said, now we didn't really catch any of these battles, but we can see on the map, maybe in response, probably not, since he launched the attack this turn. No, maybe he didn't, unless he one turn popped it, which is possible. But anyway, Vanheim has attacked Baratos, which is good news for us, because now, I was kind of wondering, well, what is, Vanheim planning? And it looks like, yeah, they're attacking Baratos. So that's probably good. Arcane Nexus is really dangerous. So yeah. All right. So what are we doing? So our arrows look a little passive, and this is just the madness and craziness of Dominions. I'd mentioned that the player was looking for a sub. Well, he found a sub, right? So the player for has now changed, and so diplomacy is like kind of reset. It depends on the player. But anyway, I talked with the player, and they were interested, the new player, and they were interested in ending the war. I'm sure has plenty of scouts running around, so they probably also those battles that we just watched, with Pangea getting eliminated and Helheim taking some forts, and he probably has scouts scattered all through here. So the new player jumped in and was probably like, wow, like Helheim's getting close to winning, like they're maybe like a little uncontrollable at this point. So that's, I pitched the same argument again, like, hey, we probably shouldn't be fighting, like let's go fight fight Helheim instead. And this player was interested. So I forget exactly what we worked out. Definitely he's gonna keep this fort. So that's sad, but realistically, like, yeah, that's fair. Like maybe we could take it back, but he definitely has enough stuff that is like I'm just gonna take back everything. What has he been doing the last couple turns? So yeah, he's going to keep most of his gains. I think, I negotiated for this. I think we did a trade. So I think I'm going to pick up this, and then he's going to pick up this, if I'm remembering correctly. I forget the exact sequence, and then we're going to get this back. So anyway, yeah, these aren't actually raids. And then the other thing is I negotiated for passage for our mages, so they should live. It didn't look good for them, but now it looks like they're going to get to go home. Well, not home. They're going to have to find a new home. But yeah, so anyway, I'm not completely sure that, so I'm just sending some maidens through because right now that the war is, theoretically over, we don't really have anything else for them to be doing. So, and you never know, like maybe there's like some leftover PD, like 6 or 10 PD from, what the other players set up. So yeah, anyway, the maidens are just going to, escort them through and, yeah, so they're going to jump on top of this fort for a turn and then exit if all goes well. Obviously, like he might choose to ambush them, but probably not. That this isn't really worth, like why would you agree to ending the war and then it's like, ooh, I can snipe 8 mages. So that seems pretty unlikely. So anyway, they should be able to escort them home. And then otherwise, like, just moving some of our like siege strength back, like our Yetis and our Great Bears, gonna, park them either in Old Man Mountains, where we're doing our summoning or on our throne. Because obviously like, Helheim has, completely eliminated Pangea now, right? And, Marverni is like, basically has nothing, right? So again, Helheim is, kind of a free operator. He could absolutely move against us. I mean, he can move against Yomi, he can move against like, he has options and he has reasons to go against like any of us, right? Like Yomi has 2 thrones that are pretty close to him. I think has this throne, and like this throne is not far away, so like has 2 thrones that Helheim is close to, and then of course like I have this throne, which Helheim and of course Niflheim. So he kind of has reasons to strike out in any direction. So yeah, this army is just hanging out and researching now because this is like a ton of our mages, really like most of our mages. Just keeping in true my style, I've just like doom stacked up everything. In fairness, we were facing off against a pretty big stack, but you can see like there's not a whole lot else like left. A decent amount here. Anyway. So we're getting some research now. Our research is actually like, again, not amazing, but somewhat respectable, much better than before. Where you see, you can tell that the war has finished, right? 'Cause we're back on that Alt 9 train. We're gonna get there. I swear. So anyway, we still do want Evocation 7, but Alt 9 is probably more important now that we're not worried about like trying to cheese like some doom stack from in the next like couple turns. So we can kind of like push this off a bit. Like I was geared up, to just kind of fight for the rest of the game. I mentioned that it's probably our last war, and that's absolutely like what I thought at the time. But it's Dominions. It's unpredictable, especially with subs. Like you never, that's a complete game changer. So that's just how it goes. It's part of it. So at this point, just gonna try to get some research up. There really is no reason. Right, like the coalition against Helheim is done. So like, and I am not strong enough to jump in solo. So honestly, at this point, the plan is try to hit Alt 9, build up a little bit, like hold our breath and hope that we aren't Helheim's next target. And maybe try to and definitely keep an eye on this like Vanheim-Baratos war. It is a consideration. The other thing too, right, is it's always a question of like, well, how many turns are even left, right? We're on turn 80, like, we're probably not going to get all that many more turns in, maybe 20, 30 more turns unless something radical happens. We have an army just sat right here, and like now all of a sudden like Vanheim is busy, right? And like Baratos is relatively small, and it looks like they've been rated down somewhat, but they just put up Arcane Nexus, so like their research is good. Like they could have some really strong armies. Like this could turn into a real grind for Vanheim, who's not massive, and is like we have a pretty substantial border with him. And, there's definitely there's a throne right here that we could pick up. So, maybe a short war against Vanheim, assuming that, Helheim is busy doing other things. That said, probably the thing to do is try to coalition everybody that's left. The problem is that, we kind of need to wait for this war to shake out one way or the other, because it's like, well, I'm not strong enough on my own to take Helheim. No question. So, I mean, it's pretty much just, it would be me, Yomi, and and maybe the 3 of us together would be enough, but it'd be really nice if we could also get like Vanheim in, or like maybe nab some stuff from Vanheim, and if Baratos eats the rest of it, then like just continue pushing. Then at that point, get all the rest of the land nations. Still don't really know what's going on in the water. Don't really have a lot of scouts like along coasts and everything. So, but it doesn't appear that they've pushed deeply onto the land, and there aren't really enough thrones in the water to win. And I mean, there's a few coastal thrones, right? How many thrones do we need to win? Let's take a look, because now we're hitting that point of the game where we're going to want to be checking this a lot more. So you need 8 thrones to win, right? Because they're all level 2 thrones. You need 16 points. So I mean, you're looking at like probably 5 thrones, right? That are relatively easy for the water nations to access, right? Obviously they're gonna have the 3 that are underwater, and these coastal ones are pretty. So they're gonna need 3 more inland thrones, which is gonna be tough. Like, now there's definitely some thrones that aren't crazy far away, right? Like, this is only like 3 provinces inland and etc. But yeah, the underwater nations don't really seem to be threatening. So I don't know what's going on underwater, and whether... the other thing too is like Helheim doesn't really have a lot of coast, right? So, I mean, maybe a little bit here. So trying to get an underwater nation into the coalition, like, probably kind of incidental. So anyway, yeah. So, could maybe try to, coalition up with the remainder of the land powers, but I'm not convinced that, and especially too, like, is really out of position, right? Because she was busy fighting me. So he's going to need at least a few turns anyway to transfer forces back over onto that front. So, maybe Helheim if it shakes out right, but also maybe Vanheim, maybe pick up a little more territory. And, is that the best idea with like Helheim looking so threatening? Maybe not. But I mean, at the same time, we have to consider that, like, well, we can't attack them solo and have any hope of victory. So kind of depends on, what the other players are going to be doing at this point. So yeah, I think that more or less covers it. So that was turn 80.